Hi friends, what's up? It's Jaime here. Welcome back to another video. For today's video, we're going to be talking about my ongoing project, my audio drama, Mission to Martius. Since my last video about Mission to Martius, which was a couple months ago, I think, now at this point, I have some updates. So first, I'm going to talk about the revisions process for episodes 1 and 2 of Mission to Martius, and then I'm going to talk about the project's current status. And then to round out the video, I'm going to be talking about some of my immediate plans for Mission to Martius that will be going into effect within the next couple of months. So, without further ado, let's get into the video. So since I last talked about Mission to Martius with you guys, I revealed the new name, Mission to Martius. And I also shared a bit of my experience with receiving feedback when I presented episode 1 of Mission to Martius to my Writing for Television class. Also, the reason why I was presenting Mission to Martius to my Writing for Television class, despite Mission to Martius being an audio drama, is really because Writing for Television is the only class within the playwriting and screenwriting program at my school, or at least the only regular class, excluding like senior project stuff, where you're allowed essentially to present long form episodic projects. Just about all of the screenwriting classes within the program are geared towards film and not shows or episodic projects. There is a writing for the web series class that I'm actually taking next semester, but that class is really more for shorter webisodes, and that doesn't really fit the format of Mission to Martius. Also, even though I am currently producing Mission to Martius as an audio drama just for the sake of cost, I do write the episodes with the hopes that one day, maybe one day, very, very far in the future, Mission to Martius will be able to be made into an animated series. This is just kind of a side note, but I do hope to have at least some parts of Mission to Martius even in its audio drama form. I hope to have some parts that are at least even the tiniest bit animated, but I know that we, and by we I mean me, I'm gonna have to kind of choose very particularly like which parts that I absolutely like really want to have animated, and kind of have to choose them sparingly because I don't know how much of the funds I'm gonna be able to allocate towards animation. So that's a thing for me to figure out, but again, so I do hope to have a little bit of animation in Mission to Martius even in its current form. But yeah, even with that, it's not going to be a lot. Anyway, getting back to my Writing for Television class, since my last video on Mission to Martius, I have since wrapped up my semester, and I ended up presenting the full episodes of episode 1 and episode 2 of Mission to Martius to my Writing for Television class. If you'll recall from that last video when I talked about my first feedback session from my Writing for Television class with episode 1 of Mission to Martius, which now at this point, that first original feedback session was way back in February. It was months ago. If you'll recall from my last video on Mission to Martius, that feedback session did not go so well. I'm not going to rehash everything I said in that last video. If you want, you can go check it out to hear everything I said in regards to the feedback. But essentially all you really need to know is that I presented, for that first feedback session, I presented the first 15 pages of episode 1 of Mission to Martius, and my feedback really all boiled down to people were very confused about certain aspects of the characters and the world. So I took the feedback that was given to me, I made lots of changes, and then for my second feedback session for episode 1, I presented the full episode. Like I told you guys in my last Mission to Martius video, because my first feedback session did not go so well, I was extremely anxious about how the second one was going to go. I really wanted to make sure that I did a better job of establishing the world and the characters, because at the end of the day, I could pull the whole, oh, they don't know what they're talking about, they just don't understand it. I could pull that card all I want, but that wasn't gonna make the episode better. I was so nervous before my second feedback session, like literally, I felt like I was gonna throw up the whole fucking time leading up to it. But luckily, I was pleasantly surprised, and it went much better than I expected. Like, it actually went pretty well. At least I think it went pretty well. People really liked the changes I made. I was like, what the fuck? I'm like, what's going on? Like, what the hell? So I did my second feedback session in March, and this is going to be important for later, but all of my feedback sessions throughout the course of the semester were all roughly about a month apart. So the first one in February was on my birthday, and then the second one was in the like middle of March, again, like roughly a month after my first one, and then my third feedback session was like another month apart from my second feedback session. I did my third feedback session in April. So for my third feedback session, I presented all of episode 2 of Mission to Martius. I kind of realized that in hindsight, I feel like I might have shot myself in the foot a little bit by only presenting the first 15 pages of episode 1 and not the entire episode for my first feedback session. I mean, don't get me wrong, some of the feedback that I received during my very first feedback session, it was still going to be true regardless of whether I presented the first 15 pages or the full episode of episode 1. Like, it wouldn't have really changed that much, but I feel like if I had presented all of episode 1, which is really the only reason why I didn't present the entirety of episode 1 during my first feedback session is because I didn't get the chance to proofread the second half of episode 1. That's literally the only reason. It's not like it wasn't done. I just didn't get the chance to proofread it, and I didn't want to present it without proofreading it. But I feel like if I had presented all of episode 1, it would have made certain aspects of the world and the characters clearer. Again, I don't know if that actually would have made a difference with anything regarding my first feedback session. But regardless, I ended up presenting the entirety of episode 2 for my third feedback session, and that session also went pretty well. I got some really great feedback that had not even crossed my mind in all the years that I've been working on Mission to Martius, which was really cool. And just overall, I feel like the reading of the episode just went really well. It was just a really good, like, session. And then came my fourth and final feedback session. So my last day of class, literally like my last day of the semester, and my final feedback session just happened to fall on the same day, May 9th. And so for this final feedback session, I decided that I was going to present episode 2 again, but this time with the revisions I had made based on the feedback that I got back in April. I had added a couple of new scenes, so I thought it would make the most sense to just read the full episode again, so that we would have the full context to see where the new scenes fit in. So we go to read episode 2 with the revisions, but before we even started reading, I thought that it would be a good idea to kind of give a very brief little recap of what had happened in episode 1, just so that everyone knew where we were for episode 2, just because it had been a couple of months at that point since we had read episode 1. If you've been paying attention, the last time we read episode 1 was in the middle of March for my second feedback session. And so for my fourth feedback session, where now, again, we were reading episode 2 for the second time, it had now been about 2 months since we last read episode 1. And I was assuming, and correctly assuming, that people didn't exactly remember what had happened in the last episode. Especially because we didn't have like a Google Drive or anywhere where we could upload our previous scripts for that class. So it's not like anybody could go back to the first episode and like reference it. They either were gonna remember things or they weren't, you know? So here I was thinking to myself, okay, I'm just gonna give a really, really brief recap of what happened at the end of the last episode, just so that everyone's brought up to speed of where we are for episode 2, because again, it has been a long time since we read episode 1. It was going to be a very brief recap, like 30 seconds. Like, I needed 30 seconds max. But before I can even get the words out of my mouth, before I can even finish my sentence, because I started being like, okay, I know it's been a long time since we read episode 1, so I was gonna, and then my professor cuts me off, and he's like, we need to hurry up because there's still one more person who has to present their pages, and we were nearing the end of class. And listen, it's not like I wanted to take away time from my other classmate to present, and I was very aware that we were kind of nearing the end of class and that, you know, time was of the essence. But again, like I just told you guys, I literally just needed 30 more seconds. Like, I literally just needed to like pretty much like finish what I was saying before he cut me off. Like, I had already practiced and timed what I was going to say. Like, I knew word for word what I was going to say for my recap. Like, literally, I just needed 30 seconds. But alas, I was not able to give my little recap. And wouldn't you know it, the first words, the moment we finished reading my episode, the first words out of this man, out of my professor's mouth was, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what world we're in. Gee, I wonder why. Now, I didn't say this out loud because I'm not a very confrontational person, but here I am just like sitting as he's like saying all this, and I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, of course you don't fucking remember like what's going on, like what the story is and like where we are, because it has been 2 months. Well, first of all, it's been 1 month since we last read episode 2. And it's been 2 months since we read episode 1. So you don't have that context of episode 1, and it's not like you have any notes about episode 1 that you've like kept, because I know I've always watched my professor very, very closely during each and every one of our classes. He doesn't take notes. Like, he'll give us notes after we read our pages, but he doesn't like write down notes. So it's either like whatever he says, it's just going from memory, you know? He doesn't like actually write down anything specifically. And so it's not as if like he can go back to those notes from like previous classes and like reference them in later classes. So it's like, I know you didn't have any notes to reference or anything, bro. And so again, all of these things combined, of course you don't remember what's going on. And I'm just like thinking to myself, I'm like, literally none of this would be happening. This all would have been solved if you would just let me give my 30-second recap before we started reading. I also really did not appreciate how he like switched up his feelings about this one specific scene. For some reason, he felt the need to call out this one specific scene. And the reason why this got on my nerves is because this scene was in the version of episode 2 that we read back in April when we first read episode 2 in class. This scene did not change. I really don't think I touched it at all between my feedback session in April and my feedback session in May. And the biggest reason for this is that when we read episode 2 in April, he was like, oh, I love this scene. I love like the comedic element of the scene. Like, oh, I really like this scene. And then we go and read this exact same scene, literally like word for word, exact same scene for my feedback session in May. Again, same episode, same scene. And all of a sudden he's like, I don't like this scene. Why is this scene here? And I'm just like, like, it's not even so much of like him saying he doesn't like the scene. I'm just like, but what is it? Do you like the scene or do you not like the scene? And like, oh, that really got on my nerves. Because again, the problem isn't so much that he didn't like the scene, again, allegedly did not like the scene, because again, I can always make changes. That's fine. But again, it's more of just like, the last time we read this episode, which again, it was the same scene, you said you liked it, and now with this time when we read the episode, all of a sudden, you don't like it. And he didn't give an explanation for why he didn't like it. He was just, I don't like it. I don't like it. And so again, I'm just like, well, which one is it? Oh my god. I'm getting like angry all over again. Also, going back to not being able to give a recap, I know for a fact that my classmates were confused about where we were in the story and what was going on, which just made me even more sad and frustrated that I wasn't given the chance to provide the necessary context, because now my classmates were confused in addition to my professor being confused. Everyone was fucking confused. Like, I wasn't going to rehash everything that happened in episode 1 because we just didn't have the time and I knew that. But if I had been able to just provide the general premise, I'd just be able to talk about what happened like in the last couple of pages for episode 1, like I had planned to do, a lot of this confusion could have been avoided. Like, ugh. Anyway, that was a bit aggravating, but I feel that overall, I was able to get a lot of really useful feedback for episodes 1 and 2 over the course of the semester. Just like in general, I feel like I was able to make a lot of really good progress on those episodes. So at the end of the day, it is what it is. It's whatever, honestly. Which brings us to now. Since the semester has ended, I've been able to focus a lot more on Mission to Martius from a writing standpoint, but also from a pre-production standpoint. Okay, I actually had a clip of me saying this, but I don't know what happened to it. I think I might have deleted it by accident. But what I basically said in that clip is that by the time you're seeing this video, I've already sent out my first email to reach out to a potential commission artist to do portraits of the 6 main characters of Mission to Martius. As of the time that I am recording this video, I obviously do not have any updates regarding whether or not the artist has agreed to work together or not, but once I do have updates, I will be sure to share those with you guys. Also, this is just kind of like a general statement, but I'm not going to be sharing who the artist is until they like definitively agree to like do the commissions, just because I don't want to put them on blast or make them feel uncomfortable, like should they say no for whatever reason, and any reason is valid, so I don't want to make them uncomfortable. As for writing, I'm still polishing and touching up episodes 1 and 2, but I hope to start writing episode 3 relatively soon. Now, to round out this video, I wanted to share what some of my plans are for Mission to Martius going forward. Like I just said before, I hope to start writing episode 3 within the next month or so that's the first big thing. Another big thing that's on my to-do list for Mission to Martius is to commission a new logo. I already have an artist in mind that I want to reach out to. I just have to draft up what I'm going to say. We're in need of a new logo because, in case you missed it, Mission to Martius is actually the new name of this project. This project was previously called Mission to Mars, and so unfortunately, we must retire the old logo because unfortunately it no longer serves this project because the name has changed. And I must admit, I'm actually pretty sad to retire the old logo because it feels just very nostalgic for me. And I have a lot of like sentimental attachment to that logo. But I'm very excited to see what the new logo is gonna look like. I'm excited for like this new era of Mission to Martius. Another big thing on my immediate to-do list is to compile a list of potential commission artists to reach out to. Like I mentioned before, I've already reached out to someone to do some character portraits, but I don't want to assume anything. I don't want to keep all my eggs in one basket in the event that the artist says no, and so I want to make sure that I have other artists that I can reach out to, because I really need to have some character art done for Mission to Martius by the time November rolls around. Now you might be wondering why I'm reaching out to commission artists so far ahead in advance when I just said that I need to have art done by November, which is several months away. And the reason really has to do with what I said before. In the event that this first artist that I've reached out to says no, and the next artist says no, and the artist after that, I'm gonna be honest, I'm anticipating a lot of no's in the beginning, and so I don't want to be scrambling when October rolls around because I waited till the very last moment to reach out to someone. And should any of the artists that I reach out to now say yes, I don't want them to feel rushed. I want them to be able to take their time with these commissions. I literally can't make Mission to Martius without artists because I cannot draw. And so I want to make sure that things go as smoothly as possible on my end so that the artists can do their jobs. And the last thing that's on my immediate to-do list is to draw up the budget for episode 1 of Mission to Martius. It's really important that I know just how much money I need to put aside as well as how much money we're going to need to raise for this project because crowdfunding is kind of already a given. I know that I cannot put up all the money on my own. I know that there is a set amount that I can put aside for this project that I've already started to put aside, but I cannot do it by myself, and so I need to kind of figure out what the crowdfunding goal is going to be. And there are a lot of things that are going to need to get covered: character art, background art, general promo art, voice acting, audio editing, etc., etc., etc. So it's really important that I outline the budget accordingly. Anyway, that's all I have for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Sorry that this wasn't the most exciting update in the world. We're still very much in the planning / pre-production stages of Mission to Martius, so we're not gonna really be able to get into the fun stuff just yet. But as you might be able to guess, I have some really cool Mission to Martius content planned for November that I'm very excited to share with you guys, so stay tuned for that. Let me know down below in the comments if you have any questions regarding Mission to Martius. I would love to answer them. Once again, that's all I have for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I upload Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, except when I don't, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.